Right, no, welcome back to the channel. Not long now till the start of the F1 22 season. We, of course, have had the first of two practice sessions or testing sessions, whatever you want to call them, practice testing, same thing, I guess. In the first took place in Barcelona. That was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. Apologies, I wanted to get this video out a lot sooner, but I really have been quite busy. So, but I've got a brief video here to do, look at the timings and so on. So as I said, Barcelona first testing under the new rules, so they're completely different cars now for the season. Same engines, but the cars are different. A lot more tightening up on the aeros in terms of the way in which the cars run, and the idea of these new rules is to allow for cars to have better racing. So without going into the entire technicalities on it, one of the things that was established over the last few years is the way in which cars, or way in which a Formula One car can follow another Formula One car. Because of the aerodynamics on the cars now, you get basically these vortexes of dirty air behind the car. And when another car is following closely behind it, and it hits those vortexes of dirty air, it loses its grip, it loses its downforce. And so it's just not able to get close enough, because you're getting onto a bend and you think, right, here we go, I'm closing in on the person in front of me, and then you start to lose your grip and you start to lose your downforce, and then you just can't get close enough to that you get to the straight and think, right, now I've got a straight, but you're too far behind to get alongside of them, and so on. And the idea of these new regulations is supposed to lift these vortexes off the ground right behind the car to slightly higher up, which would allow a little bit more cleaner air just behind the back of a car, allowing a Formula One car behind it to go a little bit closer, meaning there are hopefully more opportunities to overtake and so on. So that's the idea. But anyway, without going too much into, like I said, into the technicalities, let's look at the timesheets for day one in Barcelona. So Lando Norris, McLaren, and Ferrari, who actually had very good testing sessions. And as you can see, so in the first test, or the first day, it's not going to be, I mean, the timings are, one thing, but I think a lot of it's going to be on lap times. Now, these alter quite a lot, and the reason why, well, firstly, you've got some drivers that have obviously just, some cars that have had a bad day, but you've also got, for example, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton there in the Mercedes and the two Ferraris. And the reason why they haven't done as many laps as, say, Lando Norris is because they split the days half and half. So George Russell in the morning and Hamilton in the afternoon, or vice versa. Whereas Lando Norris, for example, drove the McLaren all day. So the 101 laps looks good on paper. However, it's worth noting that actually the Mercedes and Ferrari as a team were able to do more laps overall, so to speak. So just, I mean, it's another variant, another reason why it's very difficult to take too much from these training sessions, from these testing sessions. Now, in terms of times, again, especially on day one, we don't know what people are running. We don't know what engine modes they're on. We don't know how much fuel loads they've got. Are they sandbagging? No one's really going to show their hand too much at this stage. So the timings have to be taken with a very large pinch of salt. That being said, there are certain things that we have learnt, and you look at the pattern of what's happened over the course of the week. So, for example, we can see here Lando Norris top there, 119.5 with the McLaren, having completed 100 laps, and we can see down the bottom there Robert Kubica with just 9 laps. In the Alfa Romeo, Valtteri Bottas was in the Alfa Romeo, only completed 23 laps himself. So the Alfa Romeo only had on the first day, 32 laps of testing in a day. That, to me, is things that you can look and say that they didn't go according to plan for Alfa Romeo. The Haas, for example, as well, 23 laps and 20 by Schumacher and Mazepin. Of course, Mazepin won't be driving in Formula One this year now, after obviously what's been happening in Ukraine with the invasion of Russia. Mazepin won't be there, so that's going to be a little bit of an altercation, I think, for. It's not the best preparation if you're Haas, so we'll have to see how that one plays out. So again, Haas, you can look and say they haven't had a great day either in terms of that. And then of course you've got some teams like Max Verstappen's down there ninth from 122, 147 laps, so which is a good amount of laps. They've got a lot of data. Very hard to say what's going on there. And so if we move on to day two, and a day two again, very similar sort of stuff in terms of so again with the Ferraris have split their days, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, again towards the top end of the timesheets, and again laps 79 laps plus 71, that's 140 150 laps near enough, which is a good amount of laps. I think they would be quite happy with that. But then you've also got, if you look at the Mercedes in George Russell, 66 and 40, that's 106 laps. Not their best, but okay, all right. And again, if you look at Sergio Perez, 121s, he's in the low thing, 78 laps. Not the best day for Red Bull that day, 78 laps, because obviously they just ran the one driver for one day. So, but if you look at the teams that struggled in the first day, likes of Alfa Romeo, what have they done this time round? 71 laps I'm not even going to pronounce his name, and 21 laps by Bottas. So certainly Bottas' session was hampered. But it was a better day, but still, given that they had missed so much on day one, you want to do a minimum of 100 laps, a minimum. They haven't done that, so there's still a few issues there. And then you look at Haas, 42 laps and 66. So again, a little bit better, a better day on that one. But one thing you will notice as well is the looking at the timings again. 119.6, the fastest lap time on day one was 119.5 roughly, but you can see 119 to 122. They're all within 3 seconds of each other. Whereas on day one, if we go back to day one, there's a 6.5 second difference between day one and day two in terms of the fastest and the slowest time. So but again, very hard to make too much on that. And we go to the final day, and we've got a bit more of an order you would expect to see. Mercedes followed by Red Bull, followed by Ferrari, and McLaren's a little bit further down. Now, again, it's very difficult to make out on some of these things, but certainly 119.1 and 119.2, the two fastest times by several tenths over the course of the testing. But worryingly for some teams, look at Valtteri Bottas. He's had a poor start to his Alfa Romeo career. If you look at the first race, what did he get in the Alfa Romeo? Bottas, he done 23 laps day one, 21 laps day two, and 10 laps day three. So he's not over 3 days. He's not even get anywhere near 100 laps in 3 days. So that's a concern for Alfa Romeo. And again, Haas 9 laps for Mazepin, who's not going to be racing, as we now know. And he was the only one who raced in the Haas that day. So on day three. So again, what can we take out from these things? And we look at the timing. So on. Again, the timings are difficult to take too much into consideration. McLaren's there behind Williams with 120.7 to 120.8, but we know that actually the McLarens can go fast now because they were getting 119.5 on day one. So if you see what I'm going with here, the fastest times, I'm looking and thinking, okay, what each team's fastest time was over the 3 days, and that may give us a better indication in terms of speed. What I will say, based on what I have seen with the testing, is I think we could say that it certainly appears that Red Bull and Mercedes have hidden some pace, and actually they're probably still teams 1 and 2 by the looks of things. Ferrari and McLaren, I do think, are closer. I do think they've made gains towards Red Bull and Mercedes. That is just, again, we will know more in the second testing, but certainly it looks that way. Going towards the back of the grid, I think Haas are still one of the back teams. I fear for Alfa Romeo as well. They've not had a good testing. Neither Haas nor Alfa Romeo. So they two teams look to me like they might be towards the back end. The other not so good team, I guess, would be Alpine. They had a good day two, but day one and day three. Look at their day three, just 12 laps for Alonso on day three. They'll be a little bit worried about how the first testing went. They'll want to try and get that corrected on the second testing. Williams, as a result, have, I think, perhaps gone up a couple of teams. Perhaps they are now more sort of. Perhaps Williams will expect to try and compete for points this season. Not podiums, but perhaps if they, I'm sure they'll Williams will be looking at it thinking, what, we could get some 8th, 9th, 10th places, especially if things go their way, if the weather's the right way, and so on and so forth. Things happen further up the grid. You can, if you 3 or 4 drivers go out at the front end of the grid, can obviously promote you 3 or 4 places further forward. So I think Williams will look and say, what, this is probably their. I think this will be their best season for a few seasons, Williams. If I'm being completely honest. I'm not saying it'll be a great season and that they've suddenly gone title contenders, but given that they've been a back team for a few years, Boeing has now been more of the back team recently, but certainly, yeah. So anyway, that is my thought on the testing after 3 days worth of testing. Again, it's very difficult to know exactly who is where. We don't know because we don't know what engine modes people have been running in. We don't know what fuel load they've been going on, how hard they've pushed with the tyres and so on. And of course, it's at the time of year. Barcelona's a bit chilly in mid-Feb. It's not. It's a completely different race or completely different conditions when you get there in May, when the average temperature is above 30 degrees, as opposed to in February when the average temperature is more like 15, if not less than that, if not 10. So, and we know cars, you don't. It's difficult to gauge because teams, over the course of the season, the races are normally in warm places. They come to Europe during the summer, during the winter months. They're in the Middle East, or they're in Brazil, or in Australia and Malaysia, etc. They follow the sort of the time of the year, don't they? So they don't race in cold conditions. So it's not really a clear indication of how these cars are going to perform in the warmer, more normal weather. We will again know in Bahrain, because the first race is in Bahrain just a couple of weeks after the testing. So there won't be. I think it's a week actually, in fact, after the testing. So there won't be the the conditions of which they're testing in the second test will be very similar conditions, if not the same, to what they'll be starting that first race on. And this is the last point now, in which if you're going to make any changes, this is going to be it. This is where, and I think teams will be looking at. I think the cars we may see a few more different features on the cars in the second testing as well. So I look forward to the second testing. Hopefully, I'll see you all on there. I'll do a couple of live streams throughout the week, and we can sort of discuss and see what's going on and what we think is happening. In terms or who do we think is where in terms of rankings and so on. So, but certainly again, to summarise, Mercedes and Red Bull still look like the first couple of teams. Alfa Romeo and Haas look like they're probably going to be the back markers at the moment, and perhaps McLaren and Ferrari may have made some gains on Mercedes and Red Bull. Although again, it's very early to tell. Take care all, and I'll see you all again on the next one.